Welcome to week 1 of EDU570. My expectations for EDU570. First, complete your work on time. It's really easy to fall behind, so please don't. It's a fast-paced course and it's going to be over before you know it. If you need any help along the way, call, email, or text me. I am here to help you. If you do text me, please make sure to include your name and which course this is so I understand who I'm talking with and how to better answer your questions. I do have designated office hours every Monday from 7 to 8. However, if you need me at any time, unless I'm in a meeting in the middle of the day, I will absolutely take your call and help you. For the 3 case studies, you can work in a group, but be mindful that you have a responsibility to your group mates and you have to be a contributing member. If there's any dissent among the group, then it will be disbanded and everybody will have to complete their work on their own. Also, at this point in your master's program, you should be very mindful of APA. You must reference and properly cite everything, especially your opinions. While I likely agree with you, it's very important that in this course you have support for your thoughts. And use Grammarly. Please make sure you review your writing by doing a grammar check, and Turnitin will be active for all of your case study assignments. I can't emphasize enough that you need to follow the rubric. You should print the rubric out and have it next to your papers when you're writing them. If you skip a section, you're going to lose points. The most commonly skipped section is the St. Leo core value of integrity. It needs to be a separate section and referenced. That makes it easy for you to get those points. So make sure you do that. Also, please make sure that you do research findings for everything that supports your own ideas within your papers. Please make sure you see page 4 of the syllabus for the specific pieces of the core value of integrity. Like this one, I'm going to continue to create YouTube links for these presentations so that you have something to follow every week. I'm hoping to have these done sooner rather than later so that you can, especially during the summer, view them at your leisure, and then you'll be ready for the week ahead of time. And finally, if something does not match between the course and the syllabus, stop what you're doing and ask me first. I don't want you to start doing something and then realize, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It doesn't match, and then you go one way or the other. I believe everything is set up correctly. However, while I was checking through, there were still some issues between how the old syllabus was and the new course rollout was. So please make sure if anything looks like a disconnect, just check with me first and I'll be able to help you and the rest of your classmates. Some topics to keep in your mind this week are your personal vision, mission, and philosophy of education. Also, you need to demonstrate your resiliency by staying focused on school vision and reacting constructively to the barriers to success that include a disagreement perhaps or dissent from your personal leadership within your school organization or in the district. Not all times will you agree with your assistant principal or your principal, and how you react will make you a better person. Also, gaining awareness of your ethical background to enrich your work in ethics. Really understanding what is the difference between right and wrong, and always leaning to the side of the student in most situations. You should begin to think about building an ethical character and having awareness of your ethical background. Think about student curricula of academic, social, and civic to develop natural, social, and cultural worlds. Everything is intertwined. Also, start really thinking about trends that affect education in different ways. To begin, let's look at Chapter 1, which is basically the overview of your text, and it goes over, to begin with, the multiple ethical paradigms. And it's very important when you're looking at these, you got to almost think outside of the box and think how other people would view different situations based on their own upbringing, their own morals, and their own standards. The first one is the ethic of justice. And in thinking about this, obviously this is all things about our Justice Department. So it's dilemmas and thinking about these dilemmas, highlighting current law, rights of folks, policies that are out there, and how they should be applied when we're thinking about the justice and the Justice Department. So there's lots of ethical dilemmas that are going to come up in your career that go against what is in policy, but what is right, and you want to make all of these things work together. One example that I'm faced with in my own job, being in assessment, is when we test students who really shouldn't take a test, but we do it because it's required because of statute, or it's required because of accountability components, and we know that it's not right. So I typically, in my work, I always err on the side of the student. And if I think that something is just wrong, even though the state says you have to do it, I'm going to err on the student. And I'm not going to put a student in a situation where they have to do something just because it says so in a piece of paper. We always have to remember that in some instances, even in our careers, when we're in education, we're supposed to be doing, what the law tells us and what the education department tells us. We have to remember that what was the intent? What was the intent of the law? The Department of Education in Florida is very good about letting districts interpret the law as they see fit, as long as you are interpreting it on the side of the student. So that's something to keep in mind. So the ethic of justice deals with that notion of that struggle between what is written in the law and what you should do that is right, that you feel is morally right. And sometimes when you're making those decisions, it can be in a situation where you feel something is morally right, but it is perhaps something that is not written in law that can cause a lot of trouble. And it's more so in those sensationalized cases that we read about, and it's typically where you're dealing with things that are on the extreme right or the extreme left, typically centered around politics and those very deep-seated feelings that some folks have around certain high-profile things. So that's something to think about with the ethic of justice. The ethic of critique is just that. It's when we are interpreting or we are reaffirming different things that we hear. We are critiquing things, but are we doing it in such a fashion that when we are critiquing it, that we are being very even-keeled and not subjective to one side or another, and that our perspective is in the middle, that we are not opinionated or biased in either way. So we're supposed to be very moderate when it comes to the ethic of critique, and that's what that whole that ethic supports itself around. So there's lots of differences between things, like in the book it talks about the difference between, or the divide between, church and state. So where do we fit in that puzzle, and how do we bring those two pieces together so that we can function? And if you work in public school, there's a very different feeling when you're in a public school arena than when you're in a private school arena, especially in a religious private school arena, because there's that ethic of critique can shift a little, and the barometer can shift, because your middle ground in public school is going to be different than your middle ground in a private school. So those are things to consider, is where do you find that middle ground to where your critique is even and appropriate and moderate. The ethic of care moves away from legislation altogether, and it's more of the feelings and the emotional side of how you deal with students, and that relationship and that bond that you have for making students better, and that notion that they are going to be the ones who take care of us when we're older. They are going to be the ones who are in positions in the government who take care of us. So we want to take care of them now and bring them up as best that they can be. So that's that notion of ethic of care. And then, of course, the ethic of profession is why we're doing what we're doing. We are going to fight for what is right. We are going to fight for what is right for students. And I think we hear a lot of that now, especially with all of the changes that are coming so fast and furious in education on a seemingly daily basis. We are fighting for our profession. We are fighting for what is right. I very rarely speak out because of the job that I'm in. It's not that it is high profile, but I can get a lot of backlash because of the position that I have in a public school education. So I have to be very cautious about the things that I say in my out loud voice, because they can get put into the newspaper and it can become a detriment to me. So I have to be very cautious of that. But in this day and age, there's a lot of things that are happening that professionally I have issues with. And not because Nicole Binder has problems with it, but it's because somebody who is in a position of leadership within a school system knows and understands the long-range problems with decisions that are made. And it becomes a huge issue thinking about how budgets are calculated and how testing events will impact not only students but teachers and logistics. And that becomes layers within what you do and how you articulate your concerns back. So it's where you can remove yourself from your argument, and you are specifically thinking of that ethic of profession, that you can have a voice because you can take your emotions out of it, and you are literally speaking from your knowledge and all of your expertise within what you do every day. And that is the ethic of profession. So that all of those things play into each other. And then at the same time, when we have all of these, the fundamentals of what we do happening in us every day, we have this layer of turbulence that is happening. And in most situations, hopefully you are dealing with light turbulence. This is the little things that happen every day. It's the kids come late to class, or you didn't have all of your lesson plans ready to go as soon as you walked in the door, or something was missing, or you couldn't find your keys. That's all considered light turbulence. It's more of like an annoyance. It's things that happen on a daily basis, but you know what? When you go home at night, you don't even remember that they even happened. So it's nothing that truly bothers you for a long-term period. Then you have moderate turbulence. And moderate turbulence is a little bit more widespread. It's something that you understand is there, you deal with it, and there is, it's happening on a daily basis, and there is hope that it will get corrected. It's not something enough to where you're going to walk away from your job if you are strong in character and you're willing to take on, depending on the situation, you're willing to take on that challenge, but it is something that is considered challenging. There would be something that needs to be like a district-wide or a systematic approach to fix it. It's not something that one person could fix, and it's not something that just happens in a classroom. It would be more like you have consistently low-performing students in reading, and the state is coming in to try to fix it for you. It's something where it's uncomfortable every day. You know it's a problem, but it's a challenge. It's one of those things where the folks that come to school may not like that kind of environment, so they choose to leave, but the environment still continues and the system continues to work. Be it not the best situation, it still works. Then we have severe turbulence. Severe turbulence is beyond uncomfortable. Severe turbulence is where there's an actual fear within the organization. It's a notion of, do I have a job tomorrow? It's beyond the going to work and being comfortable at all in your day. You don't know what's going to happen one day to the next. There's this feeling of a loss of control. You're very nervous. you become less associated with going to work and being a professional to this is a job. This is something where I clock in and out of, and I'm much rather clocking out than clocking in. It's very difficult to ever be happy when you're at work, and there's a sense of this fear and overwhelming sense that you may not have a job tomorrow, and how am I gonna take care of my family? It's a very uncomfortable place to be. And then, of course, extreme turbulence is where, honestly, the plane is going down. It's like everybody's jumping out the windows at this point. There's structural damage. It's not only that the people are uncomfortable, it's that there will not be an organization. It's not that I'm going to lose my job. It's that everybody is going to lose all of their jobs. So that level, typically in a school district, you don't feel the extreme turbulence, because it's not something that it would happen because the way the funding is. But for example, you could feel it like if a hurricane came, like the one that hit when Katrina hit in Louisiana. That would be considered extreme turbulence because the schools shut down. There were no schools, so everybody did. That was extreme turbulence. I mean, it would have to take something like that to happen for extreme turbulence. Severe turbulence has been occurring within my school district at the district level when they were redeploying district folks back into the classroom, because all those folks, they only had or have until June, next Friday, in order to secure a permanent position before they may not have a position. So that is that notion of going to work every day and not knowing if you want to be there, not knowing if you have a job there, that it's just this living in a bubble and waiting for it to pop. So that's that fear piece. Moderate, you wouldn't want to live in a moderate turbulence. However, a lot of folks who work in Title I schools perhaps live in that world, because there's different dilemmas and issues every single day. Things aren't perfect, but you're successful in it. So it's a struggle. So those kind of situations could be between a light and moderate turbulence, depending on what's happening. And then light is just, that's just I wouldn't say it's a cakewalk, but it's something where you can go home and you bring some stuff home at night and you work on it and you go to school happy and ready and engaged the next day. So different things with the turbulence theory, but thinking it as the author wrote in his book, thinking about it on a plane. I personally do not want to experience anything beyond light turbulence on a plane, just because I'm not a big fan. And that's pretty much how we want to live as teachers. We don't want to live in this notion of, severe and extreme turbulence. It's not a comfortable place. So thinking about turbulence theory and the multiple ethical paradigms, that's where you're going to write your first post, which we're going to discuss on the next slide. This first discussion post and those throughout the term are due by 11:59 or midnight. Honestly, I'm not going to be up at midnight looking for these posts, so as long as they are posted by Wednesday, that would be fantastic. But that's more so that not only you have time, but also your peers have time to work between Thursday morning and Saturday to respond to 2 folks, so you guys can get your full points. Please be mindful that your posts are supposed to be written in APA format. That means no first person and no opinions. And if you come up with a great thought, then you need to have some sort of support, outside support for it. All your posts definitely should have text citations, because everything that you put in your post needs to be supported. Also, you need to respond to 2 of your peers by Saturday, and it's unacceptable to say, "That's a great question," or "I agree with you said." You need to actually find information and support your opinions in response to your peers. That will get you your full points. Discussion questions are worth a total of 10 points. You get 6 points for your initial post, and then 2 points for each response to your peers. Therefore, if you are not completing your initial post as it should be, you can lose points out of the 6. And if you do not reply to either one of your peers, then you could lose up to 4 points. So please be mindful. These points are easy to get, but they're also easy to lose, and you don't think anything of it, and then at the end of the term, if your grade is not where you would want it to be, it's likely because you didn't follow suit with your posts. I cannot, nor will I, go back in time and give you points for discussion posts. Those are a hard and fast rule. You put your initial post in, and then you do your peer posts. Those are due each week. Your discussion question for this week is all around turbulence theory. And the discussion question is, the turbulence theory provides a barometer to gauge the conditions of a school or district. And obviously, more turbulence, the rougher the waters. So if you have a lot of turbulence in your environment, it's not a very easygoing kind of situation, and folks themselves become very anxious and nervous, and you don't have a very good experience. So keeping that in the back of your mind, if you had to describe the turbulence level at your school or in your district, what would that be? Again, remember to, when you're writing your post, that you cite it, you come up with some good things. Please use your text. It is definitely all around turbulence theory, so that would be the best resource for this first post. I look forward to reading these posts because they can get really interesting really quick. So happy writing these first posts. Your first assignment is from Florida School Leaders, Chapters 1 and 2. This is a very easy assignment to do for the first week, and it's going to go through your opinions on how you became who you are through your moral standards. It's important to note that while you are writing this, you still have to use citations from outside sources in order to support how your moral character was developed. Also, please remember that you do have to include a core value statement for integrity, and you have to also include a reference page at the end of your assignment. So please make sure that you include all your pieces so you get full points. Again, if you have trouble locating the Florida School Leaders components, give me a call or text, but it's very detailed within the course syllabus how you access the Florida School Leaders sections for not only this week, but for the following 2 weeks.